Hi, everyone. Welcome to the briefing room. I'm Ross Silva, your host. Today, we have our Senior Manager of Service Automation and Delivery, Joshua Rodriguez, here with us. Hello, Joshua. So, you've been answering some questions for us on the bite sized brief. And today we wanted to get a little bit deeper on one of those questions. I think during one of those, we asked, as businesses evolve and change occurs, what typically breaks first when businesses need to move fast, controls or trust? I kind of wanted to dig a little deeper. So if you could just give us a quick overview and then we'll kind of go from there.
Of course, of course. So every company puts controls in place to ensure that every action that happens has a valid requirement to do that action. Oftentimes, leadership will want something done in an immediate manner, and they don't care about the controls. So that breaks that trust between the engineer that's doing the change and the leadership without being transparent as to why they need to make that change or why that change is important to them or why they should follow that requirement. It just
Mm.
breaks down that trust barrier. So a lot of times leadership will say, I need this yesterday, right? Or we have a time requirement of getting this done 5 minutes from 2 seconds ago, without understanding that the engineer has to follow those controls. If they want to be compliant with their regulatory requirements, if they want to make sure that they're going to pass an audit, if they want to make sure that they're not going to get, a federal fine for doing something out of order, they're going to need to do those controls and follow those controls when they're making a change, when they're adding a person, when they're removing permissions, whatever. So, when it comes down to the brass tacks of it, leadership has to understand the controls are in place for a reason. But they also have to understand that being transparent about their needs and forecasting out any changes is paramount to ensuring that that bond between leader and engineer is taken care of.
That makes complete sense. So, we talk a little bit about like breaking that trust barrier. What are good things to do to kind of build it back up in case we have a business leader that's listening that's already kind of gone that route and is like, uh oh, is there anything that they can do in this moment to kind of shift gears and do things right?
From my experience, it comes down to knowing those people, right? When you know your subordinates or the people that work with you, so either lateral or subordinate, and understanding how they operate, you can rebuild that trust. For example, if you're at a medium to large company and you are in charge of 50 individuals and they have 50 individuals underneath them, those first line leaders and understanding how they operate and how they direct and how they manage and how they lead their subordinates, and then building that why factor into it. Hey, this is why we're doing it. This is the reason behind it, and then ensuring that they understand that and can pass that information along, as well as, again, like I said earlier, forecasting changes, forecasting a lot of information, because people are people. We want to know the why. And if given that why factor, a lot of times we will get right back in line and do what we need to do. And it rebuilds that trust.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think about me and in my life, and I cannot tell you how many times somebody has given me the why, and it's motivated me to shift gears and do the thing that's the next right thing. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the why factor on why leaders should be kind of moving in this direction?
That's the tough one to answer. Every leader is different, and every leader is different in how they approach the situation. Oftentimes, they want to align with the business requirements. So they have to understand the why behind the business. What is the business going after? How do I align with that? How do I ensure that my subordinates and my program is aligned with that? There's a why factor there. Making sure that they're working with their senior leadership team to understand where the drive is going. Just making sure that they're totally aligned with that, I think will go a long ways to getting them in the right place.
Gotcha. When we think about like your experience, have you run into this at all in your beautiful long career in these sorts of roles? And can you talk to us a little bit about how this is relevant?
Yes. So I spent 14 years in the military, and as a midline supervisor within the military, I often would get asked the why question a lot. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? What are we doing here? Right? The five W's: who, what, where, when, why. And oftentimes, before I would even tell my troops this is what we're doing, I would go to my leadership and I would get the background information about what the mission is that we're doing, the why behind it, what the time frame is, and then ensure that I knew everything that I need to brief to my troops so that way they could fulfill the mission. My goal was always take care of my team and they'll take care of the mission. So to take care of my team, I have to understand that why. That way, if the why question comes up, I can brief them about it. This is why we're doing this, because of this reason, because this objective, and then we need to move forward.
When it comes to cybersecurity specifically, can you think of any examples where you feel like you've seen controls and trust kind of break down and how we kind of came in and worked through that?
Yes. So we had a client of ours who was a small to mid-sized insurance provider on the public side.
Hmm.
Anyway, they were not aligned with the requirements of their regulatory needs. They were doing things without tickets, they were doing things without actual processes in place. So they weren't doing what was required of them. And if an auditor came in, they would have failed, and then they would have been hit with regulatory fines and fees.
Hmm.
So what we did is we came in, we understood their entire scope of what they were responsible for, and then we took that and presented them with a get well path to making sure that they understood the why behind the requirements of having these certain things in place. And then on top of that, we implemented those and brought their CMMI score from almost 0 to 4.5 out of 5.
So you mentioned CMMI. Can you talk to me more about that?
Right. So in the cyber field, CMMI stands for Capability, Maturity, Model, Integration. So this refers to a framework for improving processes that can be applied to cybersecurity to help organizations build and benchmark their cyber resilience. So a lot of that is vulnerability management, penetration testing, end user resilience, identity access management, privilege access management, stuff like that.
Okay, so when you're talking about this particular framework, it's helping guide these different teams and groups to make better calls around that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So CMMI and all this, everything that we're talking about ties back to trust and controls. So the controls that need to be implemented and the trust of the leadership that their engineers or the MSP that's coming in will implement those controls, and then also make sure that they're abiding by those controls. That's what it's all about.
And that creates consistency and predictability, which is what we want to make
Exactly.
sure people are working efficiently and well together. Thank you, Josh, for your input and perspective on this. Words of wisdom, words to live by. Write it down. Thank you so, so much, Josh, for your time and for your energy here today. Really, really appreciate it. We hope you
Of
have
course.
a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.